Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of NCOPD Live, hosted by yours truly, Staff Sergeant Hicks, hashtag the professional SGL. As always, coming at you live over the airways of Fort Lee, Virginia. Listen, the time is here. We have the special guest in the building. We are going to let them introduce themselves. But before we introduce them, hey, special shout out to Mr. Bullock Jr. Lawrence D-Type became the 8,000th follower of NCOPD Live today. The page is steady growing. We appreciate all of your support and your efforts in supporting the things that we're doing here on NCOPD Live. So without further ado, I'm going to let these two great professionals introduce themselves. We're going to start with Sergeant Major Clark. How you doing, Sergeant Major?
Hey, good evening. How you doing? And good evening to everyone out there in NCOPD Live that are joining us this evening. Thank you for taking the time to come out and talk to us. So before we get into all the details, first, just a little bit about my office and what we do. So I am the Director of Military Personnel Management, Sergeant Major. That is a 2-star directorate that resides in the Army G1, currently filled by my boss, Brigadier General Stitt. And basically what we do is we are the creators of policies that deal with accessions, command policy, soldier for life, suitability, mobilization. Surprisingly, we are also the owners of the ATAR system. So we do the structured manning decision review. We co-chair that with G3 as well as the TRAP process. And then, of course, we have an enlisted and an officer division. Obviously, each focuses on one focus on enlisted, one focus on officer. But specifically in the enlisted division, we deal with policies that pertain to promotions, professional development, enlisted separations, the active component manning guidance, distribution and readiness. So all those type of things rolled up. Also, we have the retention office. So you had Sergeant Major Stuart Morgan on here before. So he was also out of DMPM. So a whole lot of policies that go on within the office. But today, we're going to specifically talk to you about the promotion aspect on evaluation boards. And in my office, we also have all 3 compos. So I have National Guard personnel as well as reserve personnel. And today I'm lucky enough to have my senior reserve policy integrator with us, Sergeant Major Deanna Czarnecki. So I'll turn it over to her for opening remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Sergeant Hicks, thanks for having me on. Sergeant Major Clark, thanks for the invitation as well. I look forward to this opportunity to help hopefully explain some of the nuances with reserve policy as it pertains to the new NCO Evaluation Board. I've been a part of DMPM for just about a year now. I've learned a lot. Didn't even know what DMPM was before coming to the Pentagon. And it's been a great opportunity and experience for me. And I enjoyed the opportunity to be able to reach out and affect NCOs at all levels. So once again, thank you. And I look forward to participating tonight.
Okay. So before we get started, we got a disclaimer that we're going to put out, and I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Major Clark. Sergeant Major.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I have 4 slides that I'm going to cover, and I'm going to cover them pretty quickly, probably within a 10-minute time frame. But as I go through these slides, you can type your questions into the box. And then once I finish covering the slides, then we'll go back and we'll start hitting all your questions. But first, I want to kind of lay out a baseline of the information that I think is very important for you to be able to take away from today. So as most of you know or have heard, we've gone away from the promotion boards and we're now doing evaluation boards. And so, of course, the Army directive was signed by the Secretary of the Army on the 4th of April of 2019 last year. And that concept has basically 4 lines of effort, if you will, that we're trying to get after. So 1, we're going to improve readiness by basically giving us flexibility in our ability to promote soldiers. So we don't have to just work with a standing list of who we promoted. If we decide to build new structure and we need to promote more people in certain MOSs, we had ability to keep doing that without having to do another board. The other thing is we also want to streamline how we send soldiers to school. So we will use the OML that is produced from the evaluation boards to determine who goes to school and what order they go to the school in. We will also use it to do assignment slating, whether it be CSM slating or whether it be assignments for Master Sergeant, Sergeant First Class, or staff sergeants. And the last line of effort, we want to use it to professionalize our NCO core. So basically what we want you to do is to perform, or you'll basically be out in a nutshell. Give me the next slide. So as most of you know, we've already done one evaluation board. Last year, we did the first evaluation board, which was the SAR Major Evaluation Board. And we used the OML that was produced from that in order to do the slating and to determine who would be eligible for nominative SAR Major positions. So just in June, we executed the second evaluation board, which was the Master SAR Evaluation Board. So I want to talk a little bit about this to kind of help with expectation management. So in December of 2019, we did the last Select, Train, Educate, Promote board that selected Class 71 to go to the SAR Major Academy. So those students are going to go and report in September of this year. The Master SAR Evaluation Board that we just did in June, that is going to be Class 72. So they won't go to school until next year. They'll go to the SAR Major Academy. So when we release the list for the Master SAR Evaluation Board, it will not be like Class 71s where it was released and they knew who was selected to go to the SAR Major Academy. The only thing that the list is going to tell you is if you are fully qualified, meaning you, and I'll talk a little bit more about how you get qualified for or ranked as fully qualified or most qualified. But that just simply means if requirements are available in your MOS, you may have the opportunity to go to the SAR Major Academy. It will not be until around December timeframe of 2020 when HRC does the enlisted manning cycle for that time frame, where you will find out if you are one of the individuals who will go to the Sergeant Major Academy. So I want to make sure that, as I know there are a lot of Master Sergeants out there that are waiting for the list to be released, but the list is not going to tell them what they think is going to tell them. This is going to let them know if they're fully qualified or not. And then in December timeframe, you'll find out if you were selected to go to school or not, because then they'll start putting you on assignment to the SAR Major Academy. So on average, we're looking at sending a standard number of about 600 students to the academy every year. And the intent of that is to build a bench so that if requirements change or grow, we have graduates of the SAR Major Academy that we can continue to promote the SAR Major as we need on a month-to-month basis. So second thing, so the difference with the Master Sergeant Evaluation Board has nothing to do with promotions. It was just all about identifying an OML and who would be qualified to go to the SAR Major Academy. So in August, we would do our second SAR Major Evaluation Board. In this SAR Major Evaluation Board, a few things that will be different. One, we will actually apply the concept of not fully qualified. So I remember I've talked before about being not fully qualified. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't actually apply that rule where you're one time not fully qualified, and then the second time you're not fully qualified, you're separated on the first day of the 7th month. So we will begin applying that rule with the SAR Major Evaluation Board in August. In addition, last year when we did the SAR Major Evaluation Board and when we did the OMLs, we had OML'd all SAR majors from the battalion and brigade level, as well as the 8 alphas, all onto one OML. This year, when we release the results, they will be broken down by PDPC code, which is basically if you're serving at a 6th level as a sergeant major, battalion CSM, or operation SAR major, or you're in a 6 kilo, a key billet position, you will be ranked against all the 6th level SAR majors on an OML. If you're serving at the brigade level, 7 Charlie, 7 Kilo, 7 Sierra, 7 Papa, you will be ranked against all of the brigade level SAR majors, and 8 alphas will be included in there as well if you have not completed brigade time already. So those are two unique differences that will happen with the SAR Major Evaluation Board. And then lastly, for the SAR First Class Evaluation Board in October, I know it says on the slide November, but based on dates and other boards that are being conducted, October 21st is when we're actually going to start the SAR First Class Evaluation Board. So this is the first board of its kind since 2019 because, you know, we promoted so many SAR First Classes to Master Sergeant on the fiscal year 19 list that we were able to carry ourselves through fiscal year 21. So this is the first evaluation board that we will use the OML for promotions.
Okay.
Next slide. So this is how it will work. So basically, once the SARN First Class Evaluation Board releases the results, you'll find out who all is fully qualified. It will be released in alphabetical order. And then we will use that OML based on requirements that we have in your MOS each month to determine who we're going to actually promote. The only thing that we will not implement that you see on the slide is the very last one, where it says that if you deny your promotion, you'll be separated from the Army on the first day of the 13th month. We're not going to implement that part until next year. We still have a few more revisions that we have to do with AR 635-200. That's the enlisted separations regulation. And once we make those modifications, we will then be able to apply that in AR 600-8-19. So that one will be a year later. And then I want to talk a little bit about the bottom of the slide where we say improve the professionalism of the NCO Corps. So before, when we first started talking about not fully qualified, the old adage, you can go to the next slide. I can better explain this on the next slide. The old adage was if you were voted at an average score of 2, that you would be not fully qualified. And if you got it, twice, you had the possibility of being separated. So we've kind of changed that verbiage a little bit. So what I want everybody in the field to understand, this is the word picture that board members use to vote your record. So as they go through your record, they can vote you a 1 through a 6+. Obviously, 6+ being the highest that you can receive, a 1 being the lowest that you can receive. So the intent is for you to have an average score of 3 or higher in order to be fully qualified. So when we release the mass SARN evaluation list, and if your name is on that list, that means you had an average score of 3 or higher. So for example, if in this case, there's 5 board members that are voting. So if each board member votes you a 3, you would have a score of 15. That's an average of 3. You would make the fully qualified list, as you see on the right-hand side on an order of merit list. Now, here's where the change takes place. If you have an average score of 2.9 to 1.5, that's in the category or the area of 2, and you are what's considered not fully qualified for promotion. So here's how that works. If you, let's say, maybe you only have 18 months time and grade, because that's when we're looking at individuals now, and you're probably doing things right, but the board members may think you need a little more time to continue developing. They can vote you as a 2 so that you can continue to get your KD time or wherever the case may be, so you're not eligible for a promotion at that time. So there is no separation tied to a not fully qualified for promotion. However, if your average score is a 1.49 or lower, which is basically below the 2 line, then you are what's considered not fully qualified for retention. So not fully qualified and not fully qualified for retention. So if you're not fully qualified for retention, the first time you will be put on notice, you will receive notification through your chain of command, similar to how we do the QMP process now. And then if you are found not fully qualified for retention twice in grade, then you can be separated on the first day of the 7th month, basically similar to how we do QMP.
Okay.
And I think that was all the slides.
That was the last slide.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause there so that we can start taking questions.
Meal per message for FY21 was pushed out today on HRC for SARN First Class to Mass SARN Board, and it still states DA photo timeline, but our DA photo labs are closed. And I think somebody else posted a question: how would they go about getting their DA photo on their records if the labs are still closed?
All right, so we are aware of the issues with DA photos, and it's obviously depending on what area you're in. Some DA photos are labs are open, some are not, based on how COVID-19 is in their area. And so what we're doing, 2 things that we're doing. One, we are briefing the board members to let them know that, hey, don't hold it against the soldier if they are unable to get an updated DA photo based on where they are. The labs may be closed and it's not possible. But something else that we're also looking at, I'm sure some of you may have seen the message that the Secretary of Defense put out about looking at removing DA photos from the boards as a whole. So right now we're doing a drill down, looking into that process, and it's possible, but a definitive decision hasn't been made of when we're going to start this, that DA photos may not be a part of the board process anymore. So we're still working through that to get a definitive answer on whether or not it will or will not be in your file. However, I would tell you, don't worry about it if your labs are closed, because obviously we want to protect the soldiers and try to preserve readiness, but the board members will know not to hold that against you if you're unable to update your DA photo.
Okay, so to Sergeant CZ, I just got a text from one of my students. He said, he's a reservist. He said, with all of the information and guidance that was just put out from Sergeant Major Clark, how does this affect any reservists or AGR folks that are trying or that are looking for promotion?
Well, especially with AGR, same process as the active component. That's been from the start. We're working with the USARC and OCAR. Of course, many of them know that we just got a new USAR CSM. So Sergeant Major Lombardo is getting involved, and he's getting spun up on the policy changes. There are a couple little nuances that we have to figure out reserve-wise for TPU status soldiers. But the AGR should be the same board timeline, same requirements. Those no per messages get put out. The TPU side will have a different board schedule, and that will be published by the USARC. And it's getting worked into all the policies that we're preparing right now in DMPM. But we understand that there are nuances regarding TPUs and their selection of mileage, what they're willing to travel to. And so those are some of the things that we have to take into consideration. And perhaps, if someone declines a promotion, we won't hold that against them or take them off the list. So there are some of those items that we're putting together COAs for Command Sergeant Major Lombardo to present to him and see what makes sense. We have to identify the impact of some of these COAs and get his take on it. Hopefully that answers the question.
Mm-hmm. Next question is, how will Marketplace play into OML and promotions?
All right, so Marketplace is still a plane being built in flight, if you will, for the enlisted side. So there's several things that how the OML will inform it. So once a board process is done, the OML goes to the DA Secretariat, who has the authority to release it to branch managers into the MOP tool. And so the OML plus other things that are part of this algorithm that they have kind of puts you in buckets on the MOP tool to kind of let you know whether you're ahead of your peers, slightly ahead of your peers, with your peers, slightly behind your peers, or just completely behind your peers. And so they will use that to put in what we believe the Marketplace will look like, what your options are for your next assignment. And then you will be able to go in and rank order those options that you have. And of course, the branch managers are going to recommend positions based on where you sit and what's in 600-25 that will help improve your standings on the OML and help you improve your actual MOP score. So the OML itself goes to HRC into their MOP tool, and it informs it that way.
Okay. To Sergeant Major CZ, he also asks, you just said that if a soldier declines the rank, would they still be able to continue their service, or would they be forced to get out?
Well, and that's something that we've talked about immensely. We do not want to get rid of quality soldiers in the Army Reserve, and we have a lot of quality soldiers that are doing great things for the Army Reserve, but their civilian life, civilian job does not allow them to take off a great deal of time for Army Reserve requirements or to travel a great distance. And the leadership of the Army Reserve is very aware of that. And even the 2-time not fully qualified for retention, maybe that has to go to 3 times for the Army Reserve. Some of those little nuances have not been finalized yet, but we definitely don't want to get rid of quality soldiers. And so chances of separation for TPUs, or the likelihood for TPUs, those are the things we have to finalize yet.
Okay. I think it's just a general question for knowledge. Are these slides posted on the platform, AKO, SharePoint, or No sweep.
Okay, so a actual more in-depth version of these slides are posted on HRC's promotion website. I know most of the proponents have started also hanging them on their Army Career Tracker website. And so I will also push a copy of the slides to Sarn Hicks. So if anyone wants to get a copy of them, or he can share what I have here. But again, there's a more detailed version of them if you want to use these within your organization for an NCOPD or things of that nature, that you can use them for that as well.
Okay. Next question. I'm promotable to Sergeant First Class. My issue isn't this going to cause an inverted funnel because E7 is quote unquote one of the retirement grades.
Okay, so I think I understand what you're asking. I think you're asking, is this going to cause promotion stagnation? And so the answer is there is a few options or a few levers that we had the ability to pull if that is the case. So let's say, for instance, we're doing an evaluation board, and in your MOS, there are no more requirements to promote to Master Sergeant because you just have, there a promotion stagnation. You have all these Master Sergeants there who've been hanging out. So we have the ability to mission a board to also do a QSP, a qualitative service program, during the board. So after the board members vote your records, let's say that there's 400 records in your MOS and they vote them 1 through 400. If we decide through analysis that we need to get rid of 200 people in your MOS in order to make room for promotions, we would start with number 201 all the way down to 400, and we could QSP those individuals in order to make room for promotion. So again, the idea of that is to keep the cream of the crop, if you will. So the number 1 through 200, that's the best of the best, and the 201 through 400, they would then, their service would be at risk and possibly separated from the Army. Now, if they are E6s, we have another option for E6s. If they're, as long as they're fully qualified and they fall in that 201 through 400, we can offer them the opportunity to possibly reclass. But if they're E7 and above, we typically don't reclass at that rank. So of course they would be coded accordingly and separated from the Army.
Okay. So I kind of need to, I'm sure they're watching, but apparently there was a my chain of command is telling me I need to call, but there was a shooting at the Chester Town Center Mall, and they're trying to get 100% accountability. So I'm going to post the next question, and I'm going to mute my mic, and I'm going to call chain of command.
We got you. Okay. All right. So here's how the OML works. So let's use the example that's up on the screen. It's a perfect example. So board members, when they come in to vote, the only thing that they receive are a MOI, which basically tells them, looking for leaders and NCOs who exude basically the leadership requirement models, all those attributes and competencies that you see in the leadership manual. And then they also receive DAPAM 600-25, which breaks down each MOS and tells the board member, what key jobs you should have, what schools that you should have, what your PT score should possibly look like, awards, things of that nature. And then those two plus that board member's experience and judgment is basically, they will form what's called a voter's philosophy on how they're going to vote all of the records. So in this example that you see on here, if you look on the right-hand slide, this is an example of 5 board members. So as each one goes through and votes your record 1 through a 6+, you will have a total score, which is the second row that you see in front of you. So as you can see at the very first one, the one who has OML number 1, they have a score of 30 + 6. So that basically means all 5 board members voted them a 6+. So 5 times 6 is 30 plus 5. 30 plus 5, is the what their board score is. Mm-hmm. And so everyone will be basically put in order based on what your final board score is. If there is a tie, like you can see at number 4, where you have a 4-way tie, before we used to send it back to the board members to revote the records in order to break the ties, But now we would simply break the ties by first date of rank. And if you have the same date of rank, then we will break it by BASD or time and service. And if you have the same BASD, then we will break it by date of birth in order to have a clean OML all the way down. And then that OML will inform the promotion, the school, the assignments, and also possibly separation depending on where you fall on the OML.
Okay. So Sergeant Major CZ, we have a question about schools, but we'll come back after we get done with about the promotion section of the broadcast. Next question, isn't this an issue though? I mean, especially in USAREC, positions that you feel underranked are still pushing you to be ranked with individuals who you outrank.
So let me see if I can understand this question. Isn't this issue, especially in a position that you feel underranked are still pushing you to be ranked? So I don't know. Can we maybe get some clarification on positions you feel underranked are still? Yeah, I don't understand the question.
So, Mr. Michael Dinwiddie, could you please provide some clarification, and we'll post your question, your clarification afterwards. How would you know how you rank? Is it possible that this could be added to ACT?
Oh, absolutely. So when we release the list, letting you know that you're fully qualified, simultaneously, we release the OML to the Army Career Tracker. So it will come directly to you, and you only will be notified of what your OML number is. So you will know that you are number 10 of 200 or number 99 of 105, whatever your grouping for your MOS for that grade is, you will know. You will also have the option to click inside of Army Career Tracker to share it with your supervisors or mentors that you have in Army Career Tracker. But that is totally up to you. It's an option. You don't have to do that. And no one in your chain of command can make you tell them what your actual OML number is. Those who will have access to this is obviously those who do promotions, those who will do the school seats, and then your branch managers, and it's fed through them through the MOP tool. So you will have visibility of that as soon as the list is actually released.
Okay. Are soldiers eligible for a board, get board quoted, and their evals get processed as soon as it is submitted in EES?
So for a board. So again, and I know this, so it's funny. I don't understand what they're actually trying to ask me. For a board, get board quoted. Yeah, if they can just clarify that question for me.
Okay, so we're gonna ask Ms. Pena to please clarify. Is the reserve component considering doing away with the IMA program?
No. The IMA program is actually to substitute active component PDAs, and IMAs are managed by HRC, not even the Army Reserve Command. At this time, there's no talk that I know of, unless HRC has something else that I don't know, to get rid of IMA program.
Okay. Will the release of the Master Sergeant eval results December that would give the NCO roughly 5 months to prepare for a PCS to Bliss?
So actually would give them 8 months. The courses normally start in August timeframe. So they'll be notified that they're PCSing in December, and they wouldn't have to report until August. So, 60 days is the minimum that we normally try to give people, 120 days on average. So you're well outside of that 120-day window of being notified that you're going to PCS.
Okay. How will the next on first class board affect those who are already picked up last year? Will they get a new OML?
Great question. And simple answer. So those of you who were selected on the fiscal year 19 list and are still waiting to get promoted, you are grandfathered, and you will not get a new OML on the next time first class evaluation board. However, once you are promoted to Master Sergeant, then in May of next year of 2021, you will go through the Master Sergeant evaluation board if you have 18 months time of grade. Otherwise, you'll wait till you're fully eligible for the next Master Sergeant evaluation board. So you will not get a new OML. You will keep your current OML that you have, get promoted to Master Sergeant, and then once you have 18 months time and grade, you'll get looked at the next Master Sergeant Evaluation Board.
Okay, so this is a big question. You stated that the board said personnel needed KD time. That is understood. What about some of us who were selected to be a 50 level slot within our battalion and just started the position in May? Will we need to complete the record prior to the board?
All right, so if you go back to the meal per message, it shows you the time frame for your complete the record. And so if you will have enough time in order to meet that complete the record, I would recommend you do it. So also I would recommend you go and look at 600-25 for your MOS, because not all MOSs say the same thing on how they give credit for you serving in a position of higher responsibilities than what you currently are. That is favorable in most MOSs. Some MOSs are not very specific about it. So depending on what your MOS is, definitely look at 600-25 to see if it will carry as much weight as you want. But 99% of the time, if you're performing obviously ahead of your grade, that's normally viewed as favorable.
Okay. Sergeant Majors, when will we expect to see the meal per message pertaining to this year's Sergeant First Class Evaluation Board?
Today.
That's the answer?
It's right here. we released the message today.
Okay. How does this help or hurt our low density MOS?
So I don't think it hurts your low density MOSs at all. It actually helps. So case in point, under the old process, when we would say, hey, we need 10 people for, let's say, 56 mic MOS, and then 2 of them retired and 1 got selected for warrant officer. So that was 3 requirements that went unfilled until the next year's board. And then we would have to wait for those individuals to get selected, go to school, get school trained in order to promote to fill those 3 requirements. Now, under the new process, we have a standing OML. So if we say we need 10 56 mics and we go down and 3 of the 10, the first 10 are, for whatever reason, not eligible, they retired and 1 went to warrant officer school, then we can just go down to 11, 12, and 13 immediately and promote those individuals instead of having to wait another year. So it gives us the ability to promote to 100% of requirements every month versus being tied to a list that projects 2 years out. And of course, requirements change within those 2 years. So sometimes we don't get it right, but it's pretty close. So I believe it gives more promotion opportunities for soldiers. If the Army decides to stand up, let's say 5th Corps, like we just recently did, and we don't have enough requirements to fill it, we can just go down to OML based on the MOSs that we need and start promoting individual soldiers.
I am fully qualified and make the OML. If I don't get selected for school before the next evaluation board, do I stand a chance of dropping off that OML?
Great question. So if you if you're fully qualified on an OML and you do not get promoted before the next OML is published and released, then you will get a new OML number. So you basically recompete all over again if you are not selected during that year on the current OML.
Okay. I think the next question was, okay, here it was. Does having a college degree play a major role on OML ranking, or is it equal combination on military education as well? Sergeant Major Clark.
I bet you know the answer to this, don't you, Sergeant Hicks?
Yes.
CZ
25.
There you go. So as for those of you who've attended any briefings that I've done, I often take a minute to get on my pedestal about DAPM 600-25. And here's why. If you are truly serious about your career and you want to get promoted, then you have to go read DAPM 600-25. Before you go talk to your supervisor, before you call HRC about an assignment, before you try to give a soldier professional development on what they should be doing, make sure you read DAPM 600-25 and what it says about your MOS or the MOS that you're going to talk about. Every MOS breaks it down to you on whether or not college degrees, or how important college degrees are, or how important certain schools in military education, not just military education in a broad sense. All of that is broken out. So, and I'm not talking about your career maps, because your career maps are kind of broad. DAPM 600-25 is literally in words, and that is what board members use to vote your record. That is what HRC use to help determine what your assignments are. And that is what leaders on the ground should be advising you on what jobs you need to go do, or when they're doing their talent managed locally, they should be using 600-25 to inform those decisions. So if you have a soldier that is not the same MOS as you, and you're trying to figure out, how do I mentor this soldier, or how do I give them guidance on the next job that they should be doing, DAPM 600-25. And the beauty of it is, it's not that big of a regulation, but you don't have to read the whole DAPM. You just go to the part of the MOS that you're looking for, and you're talking about maybe a page or a half a page that you would have to read for the grade that you're curious about. So for Mr. Delvin, whatever your MOS is, take a look at it. Most of the 600-25s are hung on your proponent's Army Career Tracker page. And so it may also be called the Smart Book. So you can go on there, open that up, look and see, where does a college degree play out in your MOS. I can tell you for my MOS, it's a big thing, but I know there's other MOSs, not so much a big thing. There's some MOSs where certifications are bigger than having a degree. So it's not a cookie cutter approach for everybody. It's different for each MOS.
Okay. So before I ask this next question to Sergeant Major CZ, so these are only two questions I'm going to ask that's coming through my phone. So it is not fair that certain people have direct access to me, that you can send me a text and have me to text. So I'm only going to ask these two questions, the one about school when we get done, and then I'm going to ask you this one right here. So one previous student said, I'm currently working outside of my MOS. I'm AGR, but when my NCOER is written, I'm not currently doing my job. Will this hurt me for promotion? So I'm ready to CZ.
Well, it depends. Is it a good evaluation? Did they do well? That's question one. There's a lot of times that AGRs are working outside their MOS. I would go back to some of the basics of, how's your PT, how's your civilian education, your military education? Are you always outside your MOS? Are you getting operational experience as well as in the training environment? Are you switching things up? That's just as important to be well-rounded. AGRs, we have a very big span of responsibilities at pretty much every unit we go to. It's not very funneled into just what our MOS and small purview of job is. So no, not necessarily hurt you, but you don't want to stay outside your MOS for your entire career either. I would say talk to your senior NCO, your senior leader, and ask for that professional guidance and mentorship, and review your entire file and see where you stand. Again, look at 600-25. Understand the reserve aspect of it. It doesn't always line up. We have some work to do on 625 as far as the reserve goes, and we are getting after that. I've had conversations with USARC and OCAR. We're looking at how to bring in the reserve component and their jobs and their requirements a little bit more into 600-25.
Okay.
And can I add to that?
Go ahead, Sergeant Major.
Just something for the soldier to consider. So although you may be working outside of your MOS, or you're not in the key developmental job that's for your MOS, you still have the ability to impact how the board members view what you do. Way too often, soldiers get caught up in the limits of their duty description on their evaluation, and that's all they do. What's written in there. you can do several things outside of that to help make yourself be competitive, like, competing and going to NCO of the year boards, or Sergeant Artie Murphy, Sergeant Morales, or, getting key awards that are, pertinent to your MOS. A lot of different things that help make up the difference for the type of job that you're serving in. If you have a job that doesn't have a high op tempo, and it doesn't create a lot of opportunities for you to, get these magic bullets written on your evaluation, then you do other things that you have time to go out and do to make yourself competitive. So don't limit yourself to your duty description. That's really what I wanted to drive home.
Okay. How is the ACFT going to impact the OML?
All right. So initially, the ACFT, as most of you have seen from the Army Directive that was published, there will be no administrative applications of the ACFT until, as of now, March of 2022. And so the purpose of that is we're still going through the phases of collecting data and trying to inform how those policies are going to look once we put the ACFT in full aspect. So as of now, the ACFT will not play a role on the actual OML, because your last APFT that you took is all that the board members are going to see. There won't be anything on your SRB that shows your ACFT score. And we've just recently put out guidance that leaders are not allowed to mention how well you did or didn't do on the ACFT as well on your evaluations.
Okay. Sergeant Major, are they planning to Zulu Sergeant Major in low density MOSs that promotes 1 to 3 a year?
So I'm assuming he's talking about the career progression MOSs that change to Zulus when they get promoted to E9. So that can vary depending on certain MOSs. Certain MOSs, they stay MOS pure all the way through. However, when you become a nominative Sergeant Major, you then become a 00 Zulu. So you then at that point will lose your actual MOS.
Okay. The next question is, wow, Sergeant Major Clark, can you please talk more about the importance of ForceCom and TDA time when it comes to the promotion boards? Also, how is it that branch managers are putting service members on assignment to repetitive assignments, i.e. battalion instead of brigade time, when I have personally already had battalion G1 and J1 time and now slotted to go back to battalion in Fort Campbell? How is this reason from branch managers assisting me for the upcoming promotion board?
Okay, so there's like 10 questions in there. So let me see if I can tackle each one.
I'm gonna leave this one up for a second.
I appreciate it.
Us, but
thank you. So for the first one, the importance of ForceCom versus TDA. So again, not to give you the book answer, but it depends on the MOS and what the APAM 600-25 says. So of course, and depending on what your rank is. So what job are you doing in ForceCom? What job are you doing in a TDA assignment? That carries some weight between the two. Now, I will tell you that I also do a separate brief to board members before a board to talk about this right here specifically, because as we're getting after the Army's priorities, which they constantly change, but right now, one of our priorities is our ability to grow the Army and accessing the right individuals into the Army. And so in order to do that, you have to have a drill sergeant, a instructor, and a recruiter population in order to do that. And so there are quite a few people who don't qualify to be any of those jobs that I just mentioned because they don't pass the suitability screening, or what we used to call POSTA, positions of significant trust and authority. And so if you don't qualify to go be a drill sergeant or recruiter or instructor or any of those positions where you are dealing with a vulnerable population, then you may be stuck to fill the gaps of the operational force to go to those different positions while you're there. So here's what I say to you on that. And I believe this person is a 42 based on the way the question was asked. Mm-hmm. Whichever one you get, make sure that you are performing very well and doing an excellent job at it, and you'll be okay. The board members, based on the way we wrote 600-25, we focus on your ability to get your battalion and your brigade time. So really that's more important. Obviously, we don't hold it against soldiers, though, who have to go do drill sergeant or recruiter, because they are the few who qualified and they had to go do what we asked them to do for the Army. So for them as well, it's about how they perform when they were drill sergeant or when they recruiter. There's a misconception that just because I am a drill sergeant, I'm automatically going to get a favorable vote. I've looked at some records and I've voted in the past that, yeah, they were drill sergeant, but their performance on their evals didn't match the type of job that they had. So it's not a check the block. But if you have been battalion and brigade, you are actually where we want you to be as far as development as a 42 Alpha. So that's probably a good thing. Now, let me read through and see what the other 5 questions are here at the bottom. Go back for Campbell. And so the other thing is, so what most of you may not know is, we have a shortage of non-commissioned officers that we have in the Army. Based on the way that we're structured and the inventory that we have, there's just basically not enough peanut butter to spread around. So based on when you were available to move and based on what the priority is, sometimes, people like you get caught into going to those different locations and those positions. But I would tell you, it gives you a lot of opportunities to, stand out from your peers as you are getting that professional development time in the ones, because that is where we really want to grow our 42s at, because you're going to be a G1 SAR major before you be a CSM.
Okay. So I kind of know the answer to this question. Hello, SAR majors. I have a small question. How does AR 600-25 apply to Army Reserve, TPU, and AGR population?
Great question. Overall, the basic concept is there, quite honestly. And again, because that is what's used to brief the board members and the panels when they go to look at your file, use that to the best that you can to apply to your situation. As I said before, the Army Reserve is looking at 600-25. We're coming up with a plan to try to incorporate more Army Reserve, more specifically TPU information, so that we can use that when we brief the board members that conduct the board at RD. AGR, yes, that's a little bit different. Even still, we don't have the same type of progression that the movement does. And so we, as the leaders in the Army Reserve, really need to take a look at how we can use that tool to better project what the expectation is for all of you out there that are competing and trying to build your career. So it applies. You can use it as a general rule, but you should see some changes coming for the Army Reserve on that.
Okay. Does a permanent profile affect SAR First Class Evaluation OML rating? Is it frowned upon to have a permanent profile?
So depending on, the profile by itself, no, it doesn't have a negative impact. However, if you have a permanent profile and you can only score like 100 points on the APFT, then that may have a impact on how the board member votes you. But that is just one aspect of how the board members are going to look at your file. So I give you an example. First thing that comes up is your photo, unless you did a letter to the president of the board. Then they'll see the letter to the president of the board first. Board members will look at your DA photo. They'll judge, see how that looks. They'll go through your SRB. They'll look at your PT. They'll look at your civilian education. They'll look at your military schools. See if you've also, been the drill sergeant, recruiter, airborne, air assault, depending on what 600-25 says about your MOS. See if you were DLA, DHA, or Commandant's List in any of the PME courses that you've been in. They'll look at the type of assignments you've been in. Are you serving in a grade above your current grade right now? And they'll look through your 1059s in your record. So all of that would go into, so the PT or your permanent profile by itself is really not what they look at. It's what your PT score is. And so if it is low because you have a permanent profile, it's not the only thing. It's not a kiss of death because you have, a 100 average PT score. They just generally wouldn't give you a plus or minus in that area, but they would, obviously evaluate the whole soldier, and that will come out to what your OML score would be.
Okay. So they said that this is a serious question, so I'm going to post it. Does being a paratrooper in the Army's finest division put you ahead of your peers? Serious question, Sergeant Major.
DAPAM 600-25. So being airborne or air assault or Pathfinder, whatever case may be, all that does is get you a plus. And then, what else did you do? So let's say you're airborne, but your PT score is horrible. You haven't done any civilian education. Your NCOAR say that you were qualified, and you've just done your basic PME schools and you did airborne. No, you don't have a good file. You're going to get voted very low. So paratrooper by itself does not put you ahead of your peers. If you have paratrooper on top of crushing all the other areas, then it helps to separate you from your peers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I saw this comment from the DG1 Sergeant Major. He says, comments mean more to me than block checks. So this depends on the board member's philosophy. Either one of you want to kind of tackle the boss's comment?
Absolutely. He's making sure that we're out here doing good work for the field. So I will give you an example, and CZ may give one from one of the boards she sat on. So there was a evaluation that I looked at that had a box check of most qualified, but the narrative said promote with peers. Mm-hmm. So the box check clearly was wasted because the senior rater was sending a much bigger message by saying promote with peers. So the narrative that is written kind of carries more weight, i.e. if you say, hey, you're the top 30% of, all sergeant first classes I worked with in 30 years versus saying number one of 6 sergeant first classes that I senior rate, that sends a much bigger message to the board member when they're voting.
I guess he's making sure y'all doing. Go ahead, Sergeant Major.
Same thing. I usually disregard even the box checks. The narrative really paints the picture. And what are you as a soldier doing, not just for yourself, but how are you contributing? How are you, as Sergeant Major Clark always says, how are you paying it forward? And so if that paints a good picture in your evaluation, that can only be done through words. It can't be done by a box check. And so, yes, the narrative is key.
Okay, I think we answered this question about being grandfathered as well. Here's a good one. Would instructor writer would be looked at the same way as drill sergeant and recruiter?
So it depends on the MOS, and it depends on what's written in DAPAM 600-25. So it's different depending on each MOS. And I think most of you will probably realize most of the questions that you're asking today will be referred to DAPAM 600-25 because that's where your proponents have already done the homework to say these are the jobs that we need you to do in order to develop you for the next level. And so if you want to know if instructor is good, pop open 600-25, look at it for your current grade and see where does it fall at in there.
Okay. That's on Hicks. A lot of us are asking. Thank you, because I see a lot of people saying that I won't post their questions. So when we're scrolling, it's possible that we can scroll over your question because it's going to jump through a bunch of them. We're trying to go back and get it. So if you
can you have Master Sergeant Pena repost her question because I didn't understand what she was asking me.
Well, Master Sergeant Pena, you have been called out by name, so we'll be waiting on some clarification on your question. Is DLC still a requirement for eligibility of the board?
Absolutely. So not only is it a requirement, if you fail to complete your DLC by the time you are in the primary zone for the next grade, we will place a headquarters DA bar on you at 8 kilo. And so if you fail to overcome that bar within 12 months, your service is at risk.
So let me just add to that before you come in, Sergeant Major. So this bar is not imposed by your chain of command. So it would have to be removed from
Headquarters DA.
Okay. Sergeant Major TZ, you had something to add to that?
So that is going to be the same for the TPU population as well. And the RDs will be responsible for imposing that bar. It won't be at DA level, but the RDs will have that.
Okay. So I may have missed this question, but it was a question. Can you address the false narrative that is not selected after a certain amount of looks, then you will be sent to Fort Living Room?
Is that Mr. Motivation himself?
That is the one and only.
How did I know? I don't know.
How did you know that?
I'm never mind. All right, so, yes. So there is a misunderstanding that when we say you're 2 times not fully qualified, you'll be separated from the Army. So being not fully qualified is not the same as not being selected for promotion. So you could be fully qualified and not promoted because we didn't have enough requirements in your MOS. That is no penalty to you as a soldier. However, if you're not fully qualified 2 times in grade, then you can be separated. So to answer Mr. Lewis's question, bottom line is you could be looked at 3-4 times and not be promoted because there may not be requirements promoting your MOS. We will not force you out of the Army for that. If you are still serving and you're fully qualified and there's no requirements, keep going out there, rowing hard. And hopefully when we do have requirements in your MOS, you can be promoted. But a lot of people are making the mistake of saying the 2-time not fully qualified is the same as the officers 2-time non-select. So when they are not selected for promotion twice in the primary zone, then of course they are asked to go home. That is not the case for the enlisted.
Okay. So here's my opinion. I was answering a question about the NCOER process as far as being board coded when someone is identified as board eligible, Sergeant Major Clark.
Okay. So it wasn't a question. I got you.
How long do you have to be qualified to Sergeant First Class? I am a staff sergeant, been in the rank for 25 months.
All right. So under the old process, it used to be 24 months time and grade. So now under the evaluation board process, we're going to start looking at you at 18 months time and grade. And the reason why we're looking at you earlier is because we want to build a bench of school trained individuals. So that OML that we create, we're going to use it to send individuals to school, get them school trained. And as requirements come up each month, we're going to promote down. We can end up promoting more people than we initially planned to, again, because requirements change or people retire or are ineligible to be promoted or whatever the case may be. So 18 months time and grade is when we will start looking at you. So if you are a staff sergeant, your first look will be in February for the staff sergeant evaluation board for Sergeant First Class.
Okay. Will board members' comment ever be soldier specific? Or will they continue to stay as they are now and post it at a later date?
So I'm thinking he's talking about the AAR that comes back from the field. So great question. So as a part of the evaluation board, we understand that the AAR comments and the feedback that I get from all of you when I travel and speak to groups back before COVID-19 is basically, hey, the AARs are kind of generic. I don't really know what applies to me. It's kind of saying the same stuff. So as we move into a new system to do the evaluation boards, we are building in what's called a voter feedback, where board members will be able to use a drop-down menu to send information back to you to let you know what positively or negatively influenced their vote of your record. So you kind of have an idea directly about what you did right or what you probably can do better for your next actual board in itself.
Okay. I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, but will all FY19 be promoted prior to the next board results for the upcoming boards to keep the integrity of the new OML list?
So I can't confirm nor deny, but what I can tell you is we selected, when we did fiscal year 19 promotions, that list was so huge because we planned for it to carry us through fiscal year 21. Now, if there is a higher demand on requirements, which there are some things that could possibly happen that could trigger us to promote more people at the top, then obviously it would trickle down and we would obviously be promoting more sergeant first classes. So possibly, but it really depends on how the requirements shape out over the next year.
Okay. This is an interesting question. How do accomplishments reflected on an SRB without NCOER backing, i.e. junior enlisted deployment skill level 2, slotting while still a specialist or below, weigh against those that do have a narrative available to them via NCOER? And I'll leave the question up.
Okay. You want me to go on this one, CZ?
Sure.
I'll talk my perspective on this. So for something like junior listed deployments, I look at the deployments, but at the same time, we're in a new era where not everybody has the opportunity to deploy. I've seen a lot of records that don't have deployments on it. So I don't necessarily give you credit, and this is my voter philosophy, not speaking for all board members. I don't necessarily give you more credit because you deployed. And if you are slotted in a position of a higher rank, then of course we're looking for an NCOER that says that you've been evaluated, because it's not just about being slotted in a position, it's how did you perform when you were actually in that position. That's what's going to actually carry the weight. So I know there are some people who probably may have slotted something. I think you're trying to ask the question, how do we verify that they didn't just get, the hookup in the S1 on getting slotted in a position? They're also looking for the NCOER evaluation that tells them how you did when you were serving in that position.
Somebody, did you want to add?
Same thing. I guess I'm not understanding the whole narrative available to them via NCOER. That's what we look at, and that's how we're rated. That's how we get to know you, not just by the position you held, but how did you do in that position, and NCOER. So the SRB is one thing that NCOER really explains your accomplishments.
And if it's on your SRB, we actually try to find the supporting document that says, okay, this is indeed actual and factual. But understanding you could have been slotted in a position for only 60 days and didn't have the opportunity to get evaluated while you're in there. So, it's kind of hit or miss with that. But normally we're looking to see how did you perform when you were slotted in that position.
Okay. AARs of the eval boards also tended to have the same trends throughout the year. Okay, that wasn't... Okay, here it is. Will the service member be able to share the board comments with their chain of command? How will the service member see the comments? Will it be through ask?
So yes. So the comments, when we get back to the voter feedback, will go to the soldiers through the Army Career Tracker the same way that the OML does. And it will be up to the soldier if they want to share those comments with the chain of command. Same rules as the OML applies. They don't have to share that information, but if they choose to, they're more than welcome to do so. Okay.
What happens if they have already been to an NCOA above their level, i.e. Sergeant First Class, non-promotable, and has already been to MLC? If they are most qualified or fully qualified, do they get a higher OML number?
So no, your OML number is going to be strictly based on how the board member votes your record. So a board member could give you credit for already having completed MLC. I probably would, especially if you're non-promotable and you've already completed MLC, I would give a plus to you completing that. But it won't change, where you are on the OML. Your OML number, again, is based on your entire record. So one thing won't necessarily put you over the top. Once you have a board score, that doesn't change. So if you're MQ, that just means that you had an average score of 5.5 or higher when board members actually voted your record. If you're fully qualified, that obviously means you were between a 3 and a 6+. So the OML number wouldn't bump up because you completed MLC only.
Okay. Last promotion list, which is the first for the FY19 SARM First Class. Over 442 applicants were promoted. What happened to the quartermaster MOSs?
So it's based on requirements. So right now we don't have a large demand for the quartermaster MOSs. So as individuals begin to attrit from the Army, there's a lot of people extending based on COVID-19. And again, remember when we did the fiscal year 19 list, that was to carry us through fiscal year 21. So we haven't even reached fiscal year 21 yet. So it's probably going to be a minute before we get through to some of you. But that's really the requirements is what drives the need to promote individuals. So right now we don't have requirements specific in quartermaster MOSs.
Okay, and just for clarification, when will the Master Sergeant Board convene this year?
When will the what?
The Master Sergeant Board convene this year.
So there is no more Master Sergeant Boards, remember.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have is the Sergeant First Class Evaluation Board, which is October 21 of this year. That's where we would look at all Sergeant First Classes to be promoted to Master Sergeant or to go to MLC.
Okay.
The Master Sergeant Evaluation Board just happened in June.
Okay.
Not a promotion board.
Not a promotion board. So correct terminology, evaluation board.
Get promotion board out of your vocabulary.
Words have meaning.
Yeah, I saw somebody posted that. Words have meaning.
Yep.
I want to say he stole that from me, but no, he probably didn't. I'm just playing Sergeant Major.
So this is actually, and I got to give him credit, this is actually a clothing line of Master Sergeant Christian Price, who used to be a first sergeant down there at
the NCOA.
At the NCO Academy. So he actually started a clothing line, which has some very powerful messages on it. And I seen it one day. And so, of course, I definitely had to partake in it because I love the message that he's carrying.
Yeah, words have meaning. Next question is, how do you calculate the number of Master Sergeants that will be selected to attend Sergeant Major's Academy? And what are the chances of being selected for promotion to Sergeant Major after they graduate?
All right, so two-part question. How do we calculate how many will attend? So what we used to do is what was called a SOR, a select objective rate. And this is where we used to project 2 years out, well, 3 years for sergeant majors, on how many people we think would leave the Army based on behavior, whether they would retire, get separated, switch over, whatever the case may be. And then what we thought Army structure would look like. And so we have ORSAs who do all this great funny math that kind of figure out what those requirements would be. And then that's how we would determine what our SOR would be, what we used to call the cut line. Mm-hmm. So now we do a modified SOR, similar to what we think we will need to have promoted. And then we will send a slight percentage higher, because now we're doing a standard class of 600 that we're going to send to the academy. So based on MOS strengths that we need, that we think we may need, we'll determine how many in each MOS will get sent to the academy. And so, as I said, we will do slightly over when we send it, because some people will obviously make bad decisions and get themselves in trouble and not actually make it to the academy. Some may not pass the academy, bad things happen to people. And so we will basically have extra people that get school trained in the event that we can't promote the people we thought we were going to promote. We can just keep going down to OML. Or if structure changes and we add new organizations, again, like we just did with 5th Corps, then we can keep going down to OML to keep promoting people. So class 71, which their board was in December of 19, they are the last group that when they graduate are guaranteed to be promoted to sergeant major as long as they stay fully qualified. For those who are getting looked at on the Master Sergeant Evaluation Board, they would be class 72. When you go to school next year and you graduate, there is an intent to promote most of you. But if requirements change or demands change, there is a chance that some of you may not be promoted.
Okay. So Because I still haven't forgot the question about the school.
Go ahead and ask it.
Okay, so let's give a brief idea where we are. So we've already reached over 19,352 people, and it's 294 comments, and we haven't even gotten halfway through. So I do not want to keep you all as long as we need to, but it is steady growing. So, but I do want to ask this question from the AGR that's about school. It says, Sergeant Major, I have been ready to go to school for the past year. I'm AGR. What is the holdup on me getting an SLC date? I've asked questions, but I've always gotten a dead end. I've always came to a dead end. Could you please provide some guidance for me? Thank you.
Well, one, HRC does schools for AGRs. So the schools branch at HRC is responsible for sending AGRs to school. Some of the commands will pay for their AGRs to attend one of the reserve schools, but many of them do not because otherwise HRC will pay for it. Reach out to the schools branch, reach out to your career manager. I'm not sure where the holdup would be at. Everybody is a little bit different, but it should be with HRC schools branch for an AGR.
Now, can I ask you a question? So, Sergeant CD, doesn't the National Guard funding is a little different? Could you highlight on that if we have some National Guards watching?
I don't know much about the National Guard reserve. So the reserve component is National Guard and Army Reserve, and we operate quite differently. So the state should be funding their own personnel to go to whatever schooling they require, and again, that's by the state. And so if there's funding issues there, you'd have to run it up through your state command, chain of command. And if there's definitely a policy issue, then we can work with the NGB and find out, where the issue is.
Okay.
And also, I would just let the soldier know, we stopped training. Back in March, we canceled all the classes that were currently scheduled through June because of COVID-19. And we are starting PME back up on 6th July for a lot of the MOSs. So the priority for training when we start back up are those who were promoted under the COVID-19 ETP. They're going to be the first ones to get trained. And so after we get through those, then we will start working our way through everyone else. So that may be part of the problem too.
That backlog will have to be worked first. But again, some of the AGRs aren't clear on which chain of command for who actually sent to school, and it is HRC for all the AGRs.
Okay. So let's take a couple more questions because now I see we're at like 350 some comments, and we are nowhere near half of where we need to be. But if you all will be willing throughout the next couple of days and over the weekend, if you all would like to come back and answer some of those questions. So, Major Clark, you're a pro at this. You automatically knew when they heard G1, it was gonna be flooded with questions. So, if you all don't mind, if we don't get to all of your questions today, if the guests would be willing to come back.
I'll tell you, me and CZ, we have daily conversations about the evaluation board, and I understand that they have a lot of questions because sometimes in our conversations we confuse ourselves when we're talking about, when are we doing this, how are we doing it, and we talk about it every day because we have to brief Army senior leaders on what we're doing. So I can understand them having questions, and that's why we're doing this. We want to be able to help them understand what the Army is doing, how they can benefit from this, and what decisions they need to make as young soldiers. So we don't mind. That's why we're here. I mean, at the end of the day, we're here for the soldiers. They can get it right from the horse's mouth, so they can hopefully go forward and obviously pay it forward and teach NCOPDs and pass the word on to their fellow soldiers and subordinates.
Okay.
It's getting so dark. I had to turn on my living room light. Been on here for so long.
I told you it's prime time. We're in prime time right now. How much does KD time impact promotion? The CMF 11 report no longer counts staff sergeant as platoon sergeant time. I have 23 months as a staff sergeant and 11 months KD time. as a Sergeant First Class before reporting to a broadening assignment as a Ranger instructor. Will that set me behind my peers? And before you answer, Major, are we done with the slides?
Yes, you can take the slides down.
Okay.
We can almost see you, CZ.
Okay, so yeah, so until we get this question out the way, then we'll be able to see her.
So too easy. So yes, for a CMF 11 specifically, your key and developmental time matters because of how they have it written in DAPAM 600-25. They're very specific about you getting your squad leader time, which is not a bad thing. However, I would tell you that we are working some things with the SMA, and units already have these abilities, but we're kind of trying to work something where we can kind of work it from the top down to allow soldiers to serve and get their key and developmental time when they get promoted. That is a very significant math problem for us to try to figure out how to do that. But bottom line, to answer your question, yes, your KD time plays a big role. But again, that's just one aspect of your record as well. So again, if you're crushing it and everything else and you only got 11 months KD time, you still may fare well with your peers.
Okay. Can you explain the deck release for attendance to the academy? Will individuals receive attendance, both res and non-residential courses?
So yes, there's still going to be non-res as well, because obviously individuals have unique reasons why they can't go to school, and I believe we do a lot of our Compo 3 training through the non-res. Correct me if I'm wrong, CZ. The notifications, basically you'll get an ATARS notification, and you'll also come down on assignment if you're actually PCSing to the academy. That's why it's going to be tied around the December enlisted manning cycle. It may shift November, December, depending on obviously the battle rhythm of HRC will kind of determine that. So it will be like a PCS move, bottom line. So ATARS, you'll be notified that you're enrolled in the course, and then you'll also be on assignment if you're going to the residence course.
Okay. When it comes to the most qualified block, how does the board deal with the good old boy system? Because everybody can't get a top block. Are you looked at less favorably?
All right, so I'll give my perspective and I'll let CZ give hers, because it depends on the voter philosophy of the actual board member. So it can be viewed differently. So me, when I'm voting a record, if you have a most qualified, I would give you a plus for that. If you have a highly qualified, but your narrative says you're number 1 of 6 or number 1 of 12 or 2 of 8, I treat it just like it's a most qualified, because at that point I understand the senior rater doesn't have a profile to give you a most qualified. Mm-hmm. And just talking to most of my peers, they pretty much view it the same way. If you have a highly qualified but you're enumerated or it's written like a most qualified, we treat it the same. But that's my perspective.
Yeah, I go back to what Sergeant Major Jefferson, the G1, had written in before. The narrative speaks volumes, and especially with this change on the evaluations on the NCOER, you can't always make the top block. But I look at what is the tendency of the rater. If they always top block someone, well, that tells me where those top blocks really go and what they need. And I pay more attention to what that rater says in that small block in the middle of the back page. They comment on really your key points. And then as Sergeant Major Clark said, how did that senior rater quantify you against others? How did they rack and stack you against others that they rate that are in a similar position? Again, that speaks more than the block check.
Okay, so so I guess we did reach down to the 200, over 300 some comments. So before questions start coming in again, I'll go ahead and give opportunity for closing remarks. Sergeant Major Clark, we'll start with you.
All right. So again, first and foremost, I want to start with talking about you, Sarn Hicks. What you have done with this platform that you have built for NCOPD Live is very powerful. And I know you probably never imagined it would amount to what it has done today, but you are what I call value added. You know, you had an opportunity to get a seat at the table and you use your platform to help other people. You are the reason why we at the Pentagon have the ability to talk and reach down into formation and talk directly to soldiers. So I thank you for what you've done. When we start doing media rollouts, you know, our PAO on the G1 often asks, hey, can you coordinate with NCOPD Live, you know, to do a Facebook Live to talk about these things, to get this information out there. So, you know, the fact that you're being recommended within the Pentagon as a platform to help carry the Army message says a lot about you as a staff sergeant who has literally bridged the gap between the top of the system and the soldiers out there in the field doing great work. So I want to give kudos to you for all that you've done. You definitely are leaving your mark in the Army and the legacy that you created. And I mean, since I've seen you blow up, I see other elements taking off and, you know, people are using social media as a way to communicate. But, you know, I think you've set a bar for many to follow. And I thank you for that. To all of the listeners that we have here, I understand, you know, the evaluation board concept may be hard for you to gather, but this is probably, I think, the third or fourth time that I've talked about this. So you can look at any of the different social media platforms to look at some of the questions, or you can go to the slides and the briefings to look and understand what we're doing with the evaluation boards. We have raised the bar on how we're going to assess, evaluate, and keep our talent in the Army. We are looking for the best of the best. The whole purpose of the evaluation board is to drive your behavior to, when you come to work every day, put your best foot forward, be highly motivated, and earn your name as a hard worker. So I need you to understand the process so that you can be competitive in that process, because if you are definitely one of the quality soldiers and you truly believe that, then you have to understand the system that we're going to use to promote or manage your assignments. So, you know, you have questions, continue asking questions. I promise Sarn Hicks I'll go back through later on, but I have a team on as well. We're probably already answering some of the questions for you in your boxes, and it's okay to ask questions because that's what we're here for. But when you get the information and you understand it, all I ask you to do is to pay it forward. Don't hold on to it. Give it to your subordinates, give it to your peers, make sure your superiors understand it so that we collectively can be a better Army together.
Sergeant CZ?
I obviously echo what Sergeant Clark said about you, Sergeant Hicks. This is a great forum for us to reach out to everybody and not hold on to the information. And that was definitely a gap. And I appreciate the opportunity as an Army reservist to be able to explain the Army reserve. A couple of key things. We need to make sure that we stop saying promotion board and get that out of our vocabulary. This is an evaluation board that's not just tied to promotions. This is where you are racked and stacked against your peers, and you have an opportunity to know where you stand among everybody else. And don't let that. Some people were a little shocked, I think, at their OML ratings. So don't let that doing your best. Use the OML as a tool to help you do better. Know where you're lacking and pick yourself up to be better, so that you can repeat the next year on the evaluation board and get a higher OML. Use this opportunity to ask the questions in the stream if it pertains to Army Reserve. If they would put either TPU, AGR, Army Reserve, something, identify it in the comments, and I'll certainly go through it and answer what I can. Again, this evaluation board is meant for every compo and every status within the reserve, TPU and AGR. There are some nuances that we're still working through with the TPU population, and some of those things have to be ironed out, but the concept is there, and that's what's important for all the TPUs to understand. That concept is still there, and it will be applied to the TPU population. Thank you.
Well, so before I let you all go, it was requested that I think I've done you Sergeant Major Clark, but Sergeant Major CZ, you're gonna play quick and 60 real quick. So the object of the game is I'm going to ask you 12 questions, and you have to get as many as you can in 60 seconds. Are you up to play? Now, I've never had nobody decline not to play.
Oh, the pressure.
So if you don't play, you're probably going to be looked at kind of funny. So are you willing to play?
I don't think I have a choice.
Okay, so the timer starts when I ask the first question. Are you ready?
Do it.
What is your favorite color?
Purple.
What does NCOPD stand for?
NCO Professional Development.
Who is the current sec def?
Yes.
Yellow plus blue makes what color?
Yeah, disgusting green.
How old is the Army?
It's 245.
Competence, commitment, and
Blanking.
favorite duty location.
El Paso.
Favorite duty position.
This one, DMPM reserve component.
Great answer.
Yeah. Favorite Army value.
Integrity.
Favorite vacation spot.
Caribbean.
50 seconds.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. So wait. Fort Bliss?
Yeah. I loved it. Why do I have me so funny?
Hey. So I wanted to say before we close out, so Sergeant Major Clark, you automatically know. First and foremost, I appreciate the Pentagon even looking my way to, and you know my platform is always open, especially to the G1. I expressed that with Sergeant Major Jefferson as well. So whenever the team has something to put out, I always leave an open invitation to the G1 section to come on and do a special edition. I won't never wait, because I know that the force want to hear what you all have to say, and it's not anything slight to the other G sections, but definitely G1 definitely has an open invitation. So whenever you guys get updated policy or updated something that's coming out that's hot and heavy, my platform is always open to the G1. So I appreciate you all taking the time out to come on and have open dialogue and discussion onto the show. And then also, I'm not going to go into detail with our conversation, but I want to just kind of like highlight Sergeant Major Clark, because he said something to me this morning that sometimes we never take into consideration of others. So I just wanted to just give you accolades over the net and say, I know I told you earlier, but I received what you said and definitely took it into my toolkit. And I appreciate you for your words of wisdom and your mentorship. Sergeant Major CZ, it's nice meeting you. I look forward to having you on the panel as well. I've already talked to the team, and I've kind of tagged you to do something else with a female leadership panel that we're getting ready to hold. And it's going to be a group of females at one at different ranks and different ethnicities and races. And we want to just provide some leadership mentorship to our younger female population out there that's in the Army. So be on the lookout. I'll definitely be contacting you about that as well.
Hey, I'm not going to say anything, but she's also the lead ACFT trainer for the G1. I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say anything.
So ACFT tips.
ACFT.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody else.
So you just told about 400 and some people that was still watching.
Thanks.
And over the 20-something thousand that have already watched. I'm pretty sure they'll go back and see that. But I appreciate both of you all taking the time out of your schedule and coming on. As always, before we exit any NCOPD live forum, if you see something wrong and you fail to do something about it, leaders, remember, you have just created a new standard. And at the end of the day, their issue is never with you, but their issue is with the standard. This is yours truly, Staff Sergeant Hicks, hashtag Professional SGL, along with my special guest, Sergeant Major Clark and Sergeant Major I'm CZ. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna coming at you live from Fort Lee, Virginia. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you all tomorrow at 1900.
All right.